This is the Sony Bravia XR A80L OLED TV. And in this video, I'm going to tell you all about this TV as well as the A75L. Everything I say about the A80L is going to apply to the A75L when it comes down to picture quality. I have a lot to say about this TV, so let's dive right into it right now. The Sony A80L is the successor to the Sony A80K of last year, and much like the A80K of last year, this is using a WRGB panel. It is available in 55 inches, 65 inches, 77 inches, and an 83-inch screen size. Now, the TV that Sony sent out to me is a 65-inch TV, but it's important to note that really when it comes down to screen size and OLED TVs, the screen size is going to translate throughout the whole entire lineup because it is an OLED TV. So that means that no matter what, you are getting fantastic picture quality because it is a self-emissive display after all. So as we look at the back of the TV, it does feature 4 HDMI ports with 2 of them being HDMI 2.1, and it does have VRR for tear-free gaming, but more on gaming a little bit later. Really quickly, I just want to mention that the setup of this TV in regards to putting the stand on is one of the easiest I've ever experienced in my life. Because you have a design that doesn't require a screwdriver, it just snaps into place. That is fantastic. And I also love that there is multiple stand configurations available if you need to accommodate a soundbar. I opted to go with the low profile mode. I think that looks pretty good personally, so I'm going to keep it like that for now. So one of the things that some people do with their TV when they first get it is to go through the settings to make sure that it is set up correctly. And with Sony, you really are not having too much difficulty in doing that. I personally feel like Sony has some of the easiest settings when it comes down to navigation on the UI. It's so intuitive to get the picture to be exactly what you want it to be. I encourage everybody who gets a Sony TV to go ahead and play around with some of the picture settings throughout the whole entire picture options menu. It's laid out so nicely, and there are so many different options to get your picture quality to be right where you want it at your personal preference. I personally like to start in the custom setting because I do think that's one of the best out of the box, and then I just make a few tweaks from there just to get it aligned with my own personal preference. And maybe you're not somebody who likes to tweak the settings at all. Well, that's okay because there's a lot of different presets out of the box. With Sony, you have custom, which again, I think this is probably the best out of the box picture mode. And then you have IMAX Enhanced, which is very similar to custom mode, just with a little bit more pop to the picture. You have Cinema as well, which is going to be similar to the IMAX Enhanced. And of course, you have your cooler color temperature modes out of the box, like Standard, which is going to be the mode that a lot of people watch out of the box. And of course, for the extremists, you have Vivid mode to make your TV picture explode. So there's definitely something for everybody in regards to the picture modes, and they all look pretty good to be honest. Even Vivid mode is something that I don't mind too much on this TV. Now, before I move off of the settings talk, I really want to highlight my favorite setting of all. And some of you guys might know what I'm going to say, but I really feel like this is not talked about enough. In my opinion, this is one of Sony's X factors. You can find it under the clarity section, and this setting is called Reality Creation. I like this setting so much that I made an 8-minute video talking about it. And this might be the first time any of you guys even heard about Reality Creation. Even if you have a Sony TV, you might not even know that it exists, but it works behind the scenes and it's on by default in pretty much all the picture modes. And in a lot of these modes, it's set to auto, so it's just automatically working for you to give you the best upscaling possible on top of Sony's already great upscaling. And it's not just regular upscaling either. You can even enhance it further to bring back clarity and bring back details that might have been lost due to the conversion process or the upload process involved with the video. There's also circumstances where you're playing a game that's using lower quality assets because they had to bring it down a little bit in order for it to play on console. So you can get some fine details back that way as well, and it feels like you're using an extra high resolution texture pack in the game that you're playing. And I've seen a lot of times where I'm comparing the Sony TV to a non-Sony TV, it ends up looking like it has way more clarity than the other TV that it's next to. It's kind of wild how good this feature is. Now I'm gonna have a whole section talking about gaming in just a little bit, but first I want to talk about my experience using YouTube TV. I've been watching a ton of YouTube TV on my own personal A80J this year, and I swear every time I go upstairs to watch it on my other TVs, it ends up looking like it's just not as good. It's not as clear, and I don't know what is going on behind the scenes with the way that Sony's processing their streaming and YouTube TV, but wow. The picture quality is crazy. Some of the 1080p broadcasts that I'll watch will look like they're in 4K. Like, look at this TV coverage of the Super Bowl I was watching. To me, it looked really stunning. And this is something that I just keep going back to with the streaming quality of this TV. And I'll touch a little bit more on streaming movies and TV shows a little bit later, but I just wanted to talk about YouTube TV specifically because it does a really good job with this application. Speaking of other applications that you will find on a Sony TV, you have to talk about Bravia Core because this is really unique to Sony TVs. They give you a couple credits to start off with so you can watch some of the movies that came straight from the movie theater without having to pay any type of rental fee. So it's really nice to fire up your Sony TV when you get it and watch a couple of these movies. And the fact that these movies are going to be high bitrate results in a really good looking picture. To me, it looks like I'm watching a 4K Blu-ray, and I love the fact that they're utilizing my internet speed, where other streaming services will just give you low bitrate no matter what. Bravia Core definitely feels like it's something from the future, and if this is what the future looks like for streaming services, I can only hope that every streaming service goes this route eventually. Now, one of the biggest complaints I hear about Sony's WRGB OLEDs is that they are dim. They're not bright enough, and other WRGB OLEDs are brighter. Let me tell you that that is absolutely not true. But before I tell you exactly why that is, if you guys are enjoying this video so far, please consider hitting the like button below. This is going to help more people find my videos, so I thank you guys so much for your support in doing that. Alright, so now why do people think that the Sony OLED TVs are significantly dimmer than LG OLED TVs? Well, one of the reasons why you have this misconception is that you have brightness measurements on sites like Ratings, where they're going to measure the peak brightness of the TV. And most of the time, these measurements are done with test patterns and things that really aren't looked at as traditional content. And that's not throwing shade at Ratings. I love Ratings and I love all the work that they do. But if you're buying a TV, you can't just look at brightness measurements and call it a day and think that's what's going to be the result of your TV's brightness. That's not even the case, because when you put this TV next to an LG OLED, you actually get a case where the Sony TV ends up looking brighter than the LG TV. So that's something that you just have to look at it in real content. Not only are you getting more impactful HDR from the Sony, but you're also getting better color brightness from the Sony as well. This is something that I observed when I compared the C1 to the A80J, and if you want a more recent example, my good buddy Classy Tech Calibrations compared the C3 to the A80L, and I'm not going to spoil it, but let's just say the A80L was not dim. So definitely check out his channel sometime. I really think he makes great content. Now, the A80L is not going to be as bright as, say, a mini LED TV like the X95L, or even a QD OLED like the A95L. But I still think it is bright enough to deliver impactful HDR highlights, and it should be bright enough for most people, especially if you're somebody who's going to watch it in a dark room anyway. This is a great dark room watching TV. So let's focus on game mode. Since we were just talking about brightness, I do want to bring up that SDR brightness is pretty good on this TV, and they don't lock you out of SDR brightness in game mode like some other TVs do. So that is really great to see. Alright, so how is the game mode picture quality? Well, it shouldn't be a shock to hear this, but it is fantastic. Sony has some of the best game mode picture quality in the business, and I am not exaggerating when I say this. One of the reasons why they're so good with their picture quality is because they allow you to do enhancements with the processing to make the picture look even better. I spoke about it with the reality creation segment, but it just is going to look better than most game modes out there. Sony sacrifices just a little bit of input lag to give you a better picture quality, and at the end of the day, I will take that trade-off every day of the week because the input lag difference in real-world situations, when you compare them, they are not noticeable. So if I don't feel a difference or see a difference, then I think that sacrifice was very much worth it because the picture quality is improved over other game modes. So firing up the PlayStation 5, I had to play Spider-Man 2 because I remember playing it on the A95L, and this experience was almost as good as the A95L, just not as bright. But the fidelity was still there that I had with the A95L, so that was really good to see. Another thing that was really good to see is when I fired up Last of Us Remastered 2, the shadow detail with this game was incredible. Now, WOLED in the past has struggled with shadow detail, but Sony does a really good job with their WOLEDs in making shadow detail not be that big of an issue. So I really liked what I saw in this area. So I can't forget to mention the game bar that you get with this TV. It's going to feature a lot of the same things that you see in other game bars. So my friend Max actually made a video talking about this as well. He was showcasing the latest game bar update, and I think he made a really good video, so definitely go check it out. One of the cooler things on this Sony game bar menu is the ability to resize your screen. Now you're probably thinking, why the heck would you want to resize the screen? Well, if you end up playing a first-person game on an 83-inch OLED like my good buddy Brian Tech Therapy is doing, then you might want that feature. Personally, I can't play on a TV that big when it comes down to scanning the screen. I would definitely have to shrink it down a little bit to be able to play an FPS game like that. Alright, so that's enough talk about games. Let's move on to movies. But first, before I do so, if you guys are enjoying this content, please consider hitting that subscribe button down below to subscribe to the channel. It doesn't cost you guys anything, but it does help me out tremendously. So thank you guys so much for considering doing that. Alright, now let's move on to movies. So when we're talking about using the streaming services to watch movies and TV shows, of course the star of the show is going to be Sony's processing. The Sony XR processor has traditionally been the best processor in the business, and of course that doesn't change here with the A80L. In fact, it is better this year because of the addition of XR Clear. This is a processing feature that will help your TV handle any signal thrown at it because it's smart enough to know what original content format is coming in. And this could be really beneficial when you're dealing with a streaming service that manipulates the signal in any way. Speaking of manipulating the signal, when talking about low bitrate content, Sony does a really good job of cleaning this up better than any other OLED TV that I have seen from any other brand. And that was the case with the A95L, and that's certainly still the case here with the A80L. Now, really quickly, let's talk about the TV sound. The TV sound for the A80L is really good. The TV speakers are better than most TV speakers that you'll find in any other TV, so that's a really good thing to hear. The only thing that was better than the A80L was the A95L speaker system, but that absolutely blew me away. Now, this isn't as good as the A95L, but it is still pretty decent. Now, the A75L won't have as good of a speaker system as the A80L, but it will have the same picture quality as the A80L. So while the TV speakers aren't as good as the A95L, when it comes down to picture quality, that's almost as good as the A95L. And really the only thing holding it back from being the A95L is that QD OLED panel. That is just a really good panel at the end of the day. And this is still a WRGB OLED. But it does still have the same picture enhancements as far as the XR Clear goes, and it does have the same exact XR processor, so this is just a really good TV at the end of the day, and one that I really like, especially if we're talking about watching in a dark room. This is one of the top choices you can have. So now I turn it back to you. What do you think of the Sony A80L? Is this a TV that you think is worth picking up? And do you agree with me or disagree with me on some of the things that I said about Sony's processing or even the features like reality creation? Tell me in the comments below. And more importantly, if you guys have any questions at all on the Sony A80L, be sure to leave them in the comments as well. Big thank you to Sony again for sending me this TV to check out, and a huge thank you to you guys for making it this far into the video. Now maybe you're interested in Sony's future TVs and you're wondering what the heck is going on with Sony and their future TVs. Well, I got some information for you in this video where I got to check out the Sony prototype and I talked all about it right here. So click on that video if you want to watch that, and if you are looking for 2024 TV reviews, stay locked into the channel because I'll have a ton of that this year. Thank you guys so much for watching, and I hope to see you in the next one.